Hi. There's three of us.
Oh my God,
Oh
who's
my
this?
goodness. So, for those who have only watched this year, for like the few, maybe some Brazilians who watch, and like some of the friends who've just watched this year, um, it went from just me to me and Connor. Now we're back to the original trio. We got
OG
Josh is
cast.
back. So
Hello.
we got Josh over here, we got Connor over here, and I'm Sam.
Hello?
And this isn't the Vision Denial podcast because it's not Worlds quite yet. But this is episode 5 of World Watch because we're one patch away from World's patch, and interesting stuff has developed worldwide in terms of like trends and all the rest of the stuff. And we wanted to get Josh's thoughts on playoff season that's
Exactly.
happened so far. So
It's a mess.
let's get it started here. I want to bring the table up to not just to like throw you under or anything or throw you over depending on how you want to view it. But Josh, you've been watching some of the regions, right? Like I know you primarily
Yes.
watch NA, right? That's the region that you were following. Were you following like you were you find
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would loosely watch technically all the majors. So like Korea, China. I was loosely watching them, but like when I like emphasis on loosely. Um
Mhm.
because like when I would hear on like Twitter or from the both of you that like a certain series was like really good, I'd try to tune in to watch the VODs afterwards and stuff like that. But I'm still pretty much in the how should I say this? The NA's camp, I guess.
Okay. So I want to get your idea on how you, from the little bit that you've watched from the other, and this is another topic we'll get to talk about later on. But like as you were watching some of the legacy regions compared to how LCS works, and maybe some of the emerging regions, um, how do you feel LCS/NA is holding up, like to you? Like what was your first
Yeah.
impressions going through, or some of the trends that you thought were weird that LCS were doing, or were like ahead of time that LCS was doing compared to the rest?
Um. Now, because my watching isn't as on the nose as the both of you, this might have happened somewhere else first. But from what I understand, NA started doing the hyper roaming support relatively first. From what I understand. Um.
That's not wrong. They were also the first region to play a playoff, so like
Yeah.
that
So
can help.
that probably helps a little bit. You're right. So like I thought like that style of play to me is both hilarious to watch, entertaining to watch in my opinion, and has helped me out in solo queue immensely. Um, Pick
Which,
Pantheon, camp top lane, it's great.
okay, and as a support bait, it's like one thing I noticed is that like you'd hear Hui talk about it too, when he's saying like playing against it. It's like, okay, sort of a side note, but like the roaming support is good. It's like, yeah, it can do stuff at like low levels. If you're playing with, yeah, sure, like a Pantheon that can do something level 2, level 3. But the thing is, he's like, okay, you roamed and did stuff as a support. Cool. Unless you're like 3-0 now, it's like, but if you, by the time you walk back bot lane, it's like, I'm level 6, you're not. I have my Sightstone with wards, you don't. Right? Like,
Mhm.
the fact that I have my ultimate before you and I have my Sightstone before you, and my upgraded support item and like my upgraded stats, and like I've probably got an extra back off because I'm not spending the time roaming and stuff. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, unless you got a whole bunch done, I'm now way flat out ahead of you. You just gave me a whole bunch of leads, right? Like having a Sightstone when you don't, it's like,
So that's definitely a a valid like criticism of the strat, right? Like for sure. But the thing that like I'm kind of huffing a little bit of hopium this year. But but like the thing that like makes me excited about it though is that like if NA with this style can threaten like
Okay, but 100 Thieves is our best team, and they're the ones not doing it.
Oh, hold on.
an important top laner, enough.
Sorry.
I know, but like adapt. People could adapt. Um, if
Josh, I think you're cutting out a little bit.
am I? Oh, ooh, hello,
Oh, hi, we're
hello.
back.
Okay. If NA can make the Giga Roam support a big enough threat that they have to answer it, it will be a leg up for them at Worlds, I believe. Similar in the same vein to like how Afromu kind of like forced enchanter supports at MSI that one time. That's what
Yes.
I'm kind of seeing and hoping that maybe it creates that kind of effect where like
Okay.
because they were the first to do it, technically maybe they'll have a slightly better handle on it and like they'll be willing to do it more and blah blah blah. So like I'm hoping
Oh, he.
I'm
cut
hoping
out
that does it a little bit more. I am sorry.
Oh, no worries. You cut out for a bit.
Oh, sorry. I am interested to see how NA does at Worlds. I'm not 100% in denial. I'm very much aware of like what NA is. But I don't know. Like I feel like it's for the first time in a while for me. I don't think that we're like sending anyone bad. Like I feel like I'm okay with everyone going
Okay.
because almost every year at Worlds there's always one, sometimes two, which is really bad, teams that we send where I'm like, did it have to be them? And like most of the time those were teams that won spring and then barely eked by in summer and got in off championship points. So like I'm a little bit more confident about our seeds this year in general. But I also understand that we're NA going up against Korea, China, Europe. So
Yeah,
Okay.
weirdly enough, I'd be more confident if it was TSM because
oh
because
God,
they
Connor.
play a better job
Yeah.
of not losing the game. It's like
Yeah.
they're better at not losing to the good teams, right? Which is what you need to do in
They're
order to
not
keep
better
that
at
win.
not losing though. They're just
That's how they play, though.
slow. And like Korea and China will eat you alive for playing slow.
No, but they're not
With no
100%.
threat.
I'm
But they're not
100%.
perfect. A Chinese team will still make a mistake.
A Chinese team will still make a mistake, but then they'll come back and stomp your teeth in 2 minutes later after the mistake.
True. Here's the thing that like
Anyway.
I think Connor and I really stuck up on when we were watching the TSM C9 series is that at no point did we think that it was C9's ability to win that got them the win. This was TSM series to lose all 5 games.
Yeah.
And it's a little disappointing because of that.
And that was
Sure.
a general thing
I can
throughout the whole year.
definitely understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can definitely understand that. My personal thing is I don't think TSM will ever, if they keep relying on the let's just not lose play style, I don't think they'll ever really do well internationally because of it. They're not that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that can work in NA obviously because we have our issues and blah blah blah.
He'll be back. Oh.
I think. Oh, wait.
You cut up after like it works in NA. We have our issues, but
Oh yeah, it works in NA, and like I just don't think that like the play to not lose is a viable strat if you're not like perfect.
yeah,
If that makes
No.
sense.
But they're making less like of the kind of they're not throwing the game at Baron at 25 minutes kind of thing, right? So like whereas other teams might like go for another call that the better teams are better at taking advantage of saying like, oh, you made a slightly bad macro call. We're going to take advantage of this to win the game against you. Right? Like, you're able to like make, because you're doing a Baron that's a little risky, we can now like kind of threaten you with 4 people and send someone top lane to like, right? We know how to play around this, right? And whereas if TSM's just not going to make that risky call, they're not giving the opponents the opportunities to get the game-winning play off of it.
But that could also just let them get completely steamrolled though by just
Yeah.
not doing anything all game. That's the other thing, because like that's what I'm saying. Like on paper, I get that. Like you don't let them get advantages. Therefore, if we scale and late and get the right play and all that stuff, 100%, I get that. But my mind just kind of goes back to TSM's not that good.
I think the thing that really struck out to me, because I wrote notes for all the series, is that like immediately to me when I watched the TL-TSM series, I was like, these are the 2 best teams. Hilariously enough, I think 100 Thieves overperformed in the finals, which is great. I love progressing teams who do better over time, and they usually get momentum from that. Usually, asterisk. The thing for me is that C9 almost had to me a virtual similar, if not same, playstyle as TSM, but worse and with more mistakes being played. And it was exemplified during their series against 100 Thieves. And so, like, even if TSM made it through and we wouldn't have that same kind of confidence because of that, like, lack of consistency on top of lack of proactivity, C9 boasts the same issues and some. And so, like, Connor and I, when we're like, we would have preferred TSM, it's less because, like, oh, TSM would have been good? Question mark. It's more like C9 is, we know for sure, is not gonna be good. Like,
I get that.
I put C9 at like 17th place out of 22 teams going to Worlds.
C9, like, I'm not hot on TSM that much, obviously, but like, I'm also not hot on C9 really at all. I think like the Perks acquisition was super overblown. Like, he's not like causing them to lose games, obviously, but like I don't know. Like, I feel Sword Art brings a lot more to TSM than Perks brings to C9. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Like I feel like Perks is just kind of like a dude that they put in mid lane who sometimes randomly just like pops off and has a good game, and other games he sits there like on like Renekton or whatever and like does nothing. and like Sword Art, for example, like who was an acquisition that was like roughly the same price, I think, or something like that.
Sword Art
like
was like $1 million less expensive, something of that sort. It was like,
but like they're in the same ballpark. They're both insane.
Between like Jensen, Perks, and Sword Art, it was like 3 million to 5 million. Scale it up, baby.
Yeah.
Which was like, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
It's been talked about.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
By a lot of people.
I do want to transition this though, because like, Josh, you sent us a TikTok the other day about about NA no longer being a major region. Nah. And like Connor and I briefly touched upon it, how like PSG was actually a #1 seed compared to 100 Thieves not being like a 2nd seed, part of like the 2nd seeded group of teams. I want to talk about the nature of the politics of this, because I think I've like brought in a language amongst the 3 of us that's not like super used everywhere else, because it's not really thought of that way. But like, it's the legacy regions versus the emerging regions, right? Like the PCS, for lack of anybody else, even Freak, for his stupid comment in MSI, the PCS is technically the LMS, who is also technically the GPL, right? Which means that the PCS, the LCS, the LEC, the LPL, and the LCK are 5 original regions for Worlds, right? They all participated in Season 2 Worlds. They all participated in Season 3 and Season 4 as major regions, right? They are legacy regions because they were there before the wild card tournament was integrated as a play-in stage, right?
Yep.
where the topic of major region versus minor region becomes really stupid because there's a reason why the play-in stage is a thing, right? Seeding is expected because some regions are bigger with more money and more abilities to do things for training and for like competitiveness and all the rest of that stuff.
Mhm.
But they're not guaranteed, right? That's why like there's always surprises with notably the LCL, the CBLOL, the TCL, and the VCS now, which used to be part of the LMS and PCS. They got their own region because of their performances.
Yep.
And so I want to talk about the mindset that the LCS, or like that most people internationally speaking, have regarding the view of regions of minor versus major, and how maybe that might hinder the view of the competitive game and the way that players that are competitive themselves approach the game.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's also partially like geographical, like in that sense. Like if you look at it as like major regions, like okay, you have North America. That's a whole continent. That's whatever 400 million people. That's okay. China, it's massive, right? Um, Korea is kind of like everyone kind of knows Korea as like esports Korea, right? Like basically synonymous. Like okay, that kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
But then Europe again, whole massive huge continent, and then other regions it's like well, Brazil, yeah, it's a big population stuff, but it's like it's one country. Like Commonwealth is just Russia, and then everything else. Like, do you really count Latvia and stuff for that much? Not really. And then even like the PCS was like, oh, it should be a major region, but you're looking at it, it's like it's Hong Kong, which is a city, Taiwan, it's small, then like Singapore, Cambodia, right? Like all these kind of Thailand, all these kind of things. It's like, well, is that
it also includes the Philippines.
really sure? But
it's a conglomerate of all the Southeast Asian countries, right?
yeah,
And so it's
except Vietnam.
equivalent to Europe and North America, right?
It's
And
the Asian version.
it's a weird view of the politics of the nature, right? Because Korea is still dominantly the strongest region overall, regardless of on a per year to year basis, despite having the smallest population
Yeah.
pool to work with because of historical track records, right? And Brazil has a larger player base pool to work with.
Mhm.
The entirety of China does. Almost the entirety of Europe, which comprises itself not just of its own legacy region, but of like a dozen tiny secondary regions, enough to fill up the whole thing. That it just feels very bizarre to approach the because like seeding in itself makes sense. The way that they're approaching seeding for Riot, given the nature of the history of the competition and the politics surrounding it and the money surrounding it, the way they're approaching seeding makes sense. The way that analysts and the worldwide view of the game, like for the professional scene, is viewed, feels a little backwards to me, given the fact that much of the region's successes across the board have less to do with population or culture or a whole bunch of different stuff, but of like the internal country's approach or the internal region's approach to the competition.
Mhm.
And so like legacy teams all approach the competition drastically differently than emerging regions. And I feel like that's a whole different mindset. And I think the best example of this is to look at PGG from the LCO when they made it through to the second phase of MSI. There were hordes of interviews. Hordes, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but there were interviews that they were realizing
More than what TSM and TL usually get when they do things.
Yeah, exactly, right? But they were explaining how like their approach to the game wildly changed when they realized that they were facing against teams who had only faced each other far longer than they faced emerging regions, right? To the point where like they no longer had to play the game in the way that was successful in their own region. They learned how to adapt much faster because of it.
Mhm.
And I think that's the huge difference between the two types of regions, is that the legacy regions adapt faster and the emerging regions try harder.
No,
Yeah.
it's true, because maybe like you're saying, like the legacy regions are saying, okay, if this is the meta, it's like, well, we're the ones who set the meta. We're the ones who define it. So if we say this is the way the game is played,
Yep.
then everyone else has to follow us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so,
Okay.
viewing the portion of like the 5 legacy regions are like, oh, we have only 4 of the 5 of us are the major regions, and one of us is relegated to these puny small regions. I think really drastically changes the way that you actually want to approach looking at how these teams play,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not like you look at these emerging teams and go, oh, they're minor regions. They should be the heavy underdogs because they're definitely minor regions. And so
Mm-hmm.
NA is like all of them. They might actually lose to all of the other smaller regions. And like, that's not, no,
Yeah.
that's a
Like
terrible
there's a
way.
difference. There's a difference between the Gigabyte Marines and Detonation Focus Me. Like, like,
Yes.
like Detonation Focus Me. Love Japan. I love to watch the Japan League whenever I can. They're not great. Like they're not. But like Gigabyte Marines, like people are afraid to face them half the time because they're like, they do weird shit and like, but they're also good when they do weird stuff. Like they don't win off pure cheese. Like it's like, oh, what do we do? So it's
Mhm.
like those are two very different regions, but they're the same classification of region.
It-
But you shouldn't treat them the same.
Yes. Yes. Is exactly it.
I did it.
Because
Yeah.
like the more you look at it, it's more of a gradient scale of like who adapts more to who tries more than anything else. And so like if you really want to look at a way to classify teams in a way that's like easy to look at, the legacy versus emerging is much better at grasping what most people try to like encapsulate, which is history on top of like expected results, versus like minor versus major is like, oh, these are the good teams, these are the bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
Connor, you wanted to chime in with something?
The only one thing I was going to say is like, yeah, and just to take that one more level, I'm trying to find it now, but whatever. There was a lot of hype about the French league in particular this year, and about how good they were playing, and it's like, well, they are not a region that's invited to World. They're often considered just like a subset of like we have Europe, right? But everyone's like, yeah, the French league has been really, really, really good. There's been some really high quality play coming out of the French league, even though that it's not a league that specifically is like the tier down, right? You'd almost call it like the Academy League in North America, that kind of thing. It's like the
It's
tier
essentially an
below.
academy league, technically, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't necessarily mean that what's going on there shouldn't be counted by other emerging regions, as we call it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of players from the French league have like gone on to the like
Yeah.
LEC and stuff, right? And like
Mhm.
The one thing I would say about that though is that like I wouldn't necessarily be too quick to like want to maybe open a discussion about making that its own league or region.
I'm not saying it should be.
Because like I think it's a good thing that that's like that because that's what the lower systems should be. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
fact that like EDG and LGD and Fun Plus and whatever, like they can go down to like their like 6 different levels of league and like scout like amazing players like every other year if they had to, if they didn't have the players that they already had. Like
Mhm.
that's such an asset. The fact that like one thing that is insane to me, like North America pillages Europe like every other year, I feel. And like
Yes.
Europe is fine almost every time. You know what I mean? Like there's a couple like Perks leaving, Yellowstar leaving, like some of those like really Febivin leaving, like some of those really big names leaving. Europe is always fine afterwards because they have that like whether you want to call it like the population or whatever, I personally think it's the fact that like there's enough competition to justify everything happening, but
Mhm.
that's my
That's what it
opinion.
is. It's the European
Um,
Masters,
yeah,
right?
but like the
Like
fact that there's these under leagues, it makes it so
exactly.
like there's so much easy. It's so much easier to foster talent. So you get the Abadage's from there, right? He's recent, like past year or
Abadage
two, right?
is from the TCL.
Is he TCL? Okay, my bad then. But like I know there's a bunch of like they're escaping me because funny enough, I don't remember any European player names anymore because there's so much turnover there. But that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to like competition stuff like that, because like I don't follow it closely. So I'm sure if I followed it closely, I'd remember names a lot easier. But
Mhm.
like I don't remember a lot of names. But I think it's sick that like a team that was like considered very very bad, like Rogue, for ever since it came into the league, basically, and now for the past two splits,
3 years.
they've been top 3 or whatever. Like I think that's insane.
Yep.
And like part of that is because they can pick these rookies, pick them up for like reasonable salaries, and then there's just like NA on the side who's like, we'll just give every other player a $2 million contract and hope we win.
NA's the
And it's like
NA's the only region without a salary cap. I do want to point out.
which they should. I think, yeah, I don't think it should be a wallet swinging contest personally. Like I think it, not to detract too much away from the conversation that we're having right now, but like for example, when you think I'm a cutie pie, everyone almost thinks Dignitas if you had to associate him with a team, right?
Sure. Yes.
So like when you've got no salary cap and like you can just keep giving players fat stacks, unless a player has some personal reason, they're going to keep jumping around, right? So like you don't really get the I'm a cutie pie players anymore where it's like, that player is Dignitas. You know what I mean? Like there aren't really like
Mm-hmm.
players who get associated with teams because there's so much jumping around from team to team, which is kind of a thing that happens a little bit everywhere. But like
I
I
mean,
feel like it's so much more in NA at least, where there's like
Yeah, I
big
know.
names get
Yeah.
traded back and forth.
Well, I think this you can see you
you
can
do
actually
kind of have it. I don't know.
there's
You have your faker and your T1, you know.
no, but in NA
And your
it's less of a thing. While as in other regions like DFM have had almost virtually the same like
roster.
like 3 people for the last 5 years. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you can say
Unifon
stuff
has
like
been
some
in that
days 100
roster
keys.
since 2016, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
crazy, right? Or like Arya, same kind of deal. Or like how Doinby used to be a part of one team for like 5 years before he jumped to FPX.
Yeah.
Like there is a, and this is just to like before we get to the next topic, I feel like this is the great way to like spin off to the next one. There is
Okay.
something to be said about the like culture of esports itself.
Mhm.
As take it or leave it if you think it's good or bad, but like as we want to compare ourselves to traditional sports as much as possible, and identity to a team is hard to place if it's not location based. And so the best way to identify a team or to have a culture or like a fan culture around a team is usually from a player, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
I think Europe was a lot easier to do it because you had like SK was the Spanish team, Fnatic was the French team. For like the longest time, no longer really.
Lions
the case.
was also Spanish, I think, for a while.
Lions was the Spanish team, yeah, or it still is the Spanish team, and like it's not as much now, but like people really strongly identify with players more than anything else, and I think the only region that does the location based thing is China,
hmm
and I think only a third of their teams actually can do that.
hmm
Yeah.
The one thing I will say though is that like there are some teams.
Rogue is mostly Polish.
Oh.
For what it's worth.
There are some teams like in NA. Again, that's the region that I follow the most, so that's probably the one I'm going to cite the most. But like, there are some teams that are lucky enough to have an identity outside of players. So like,
Yeah.
TSM has like the memes of just TSM because they're a founding team, so like they get that little thing of like being an OG. So they just have fans for literally just being one of the first ones. Essentially, that's at least my opinion. But then like one of the newest examples, I think, or at least attempts, it's debatable depending on who you talk to, but like one of the newest teams to kind of like be able to forge an identity, or two newest teams are FlyQuest and 100 Thieves. So 100 Thieves has kind of tried to like market themselves to be kind of like the swaggy team a little bit. So that's always kind of like been their angle. So like you could potentially hook onto them as like they're the swaggy team. They're cool. They're like whatever, right? And then FlyQuest has tried to like rebrand and become like they're like the happy-go-lucky nature team. So like they do like their branding and like they have contests and stuff like that about like the fish predicting games. Like that was like a year or two ago or whatever, where they film a fish for an hour and then whichever side of the tank it ended up on was the team that predict stuff like that, right? So it's like that's an attempt at branding. But then there's teams like Immortals and Dignitas Now and like CLG, where it's like you're just a team, right? Golden Guardians could have insane branding if they like, oh my god, I'm losing my words. If they collaborated more with their basketball team, they could have an insane
I think they're
brand,
not
I feel.
allowed.
Huh?
I think they're not allowed.
Are they not allowed? That's stupid then. I get okay, if they can't, cool, I don't fault them, but I think it's stupid that they
That's the
can't.
same reason why 100 Thieves and Immortals can't do it with their basketball equivalents.
All right, that makes sense.
Because 100 Thieves basketball
I
equivalents
know.
is the Raptors.
Is it actually?
Yes, because Drake is an owner of both.
Oh my god. All right.
Which is why like the 100 Thieves Golden Guardians whole like fiasco they had like a couple of years back was really funny, because in the same years during the basketball playoffs it was literally the Golden State Warriors versus the Raptors, and I was like, yes, mirror each other.
Well, that's silly then that Riot doesn't let them advertise in that way, because I feel like it would help with branding and sales and all that stuff, but all right.
I think it's to avoid the way that people would purchase slots, right? Because like Madison Square Garden CLG also has a basketball equivalent that they can't use. I think that's it. Yeah, those are the only teams that I can remember that have basketball
A lot of
equivalents.
basketball. I mean,
I
Echo
still
Fox, for what
feel
it's worth, but yeah.
I still feel like I don't know. I feel like they there's a lot of things teams should be doing that they don't do, like investing in like amateur and branding and all that stuff. But we don't have to get into that. What's the next point, Sam?
Right, hold on. I had it in front of me. This is why you keep your phone open. Let's go.
Minor point, but for what it's worth, I saw a thing that said the reason why CLG still has their spot in the LCS is because they give the Madison Square Guardian access.
Which they might not for very long.
What?
That's a whole other topic, irrelevant for this right now. Because they're not a Worlds team. Okay, so I had a point of like, because I never got the answer from this, how do you think, because I asked Connor this in the last episode, do you think that NA will get any better than top 8?
So the teams that we're sending is 100T, TL, C9.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
But I feel like if our teams played at their peaks, they could. But that never happens at Worlds. So I'm gonna say no.
All right. And this is a topic that I wanted to talk about with you also, because we didn't get to talk about this when I had the unicorn in the room section from the last video. I don't know if you watched our last video.
No, unfortunately.
Oh, cool. I put Unicorns of Love in last place going to Worlds.
My heart. How could you do this?
And mostly because I think you'll be hyper disappointed with this. They only play cheese. Out of the 22 teams, they're the only ones to play cheese and I must emphasize this, barely win off of that.
Mm.
On a 5-game series after they had to go through the losers bracket and won on a rematch. Connor had different feelings on this. He put Peace in last place, which I might have to because they can't play with their top laner going to Worlds.
That's right. That sucks. I saw that on
Yeah.
Twitter.
So we'll see from that. But I didn't want to see your reaction from me because they have virtually the same exact team from last year, except their ADC is now a new player from Gambit, because Gambit's no longer a league team.
Yeah. So while it hurts, I can't fault you for having that that classification for them, because I distinctly remember last year, one of our many episodes when we were doing like essentially dailies or whatever for play-ins. I distinctly remember a match where like I got so upset about the fact that it was Cassidon into
Mm-hmm.
Silas,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget the guy's name, but whoever's the mid for unicorns,
Anonisic.
just like
No,
Huh?
that's the jungler. It's
Oh.
it's No Man's.
It's
is the
yes,
mid
no
laner.
man's.
No Man's. There you
Correct.
go. So No Man's just like pure disrespected the Silas. I think it was. I think he was a Cassidon, and he was going
Yep.
into a Silas.
Yep.
He just like pure disrespected and got level 1 killed. And I was just like level 1 killed like before the first minion wave was dead or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's insane. How do you go home? Like like out of the tournament, immediate elimination. That's dumb. Like, so if they're still playing like that, I
Yes.
get it. I'm upset, but I get it.
They are 100% still playing kind of like that. Granted, he was also again the first one to bring a Cassidon in a meta that had no Cassidon, and then 3 other teams brought it up later into the series to mixed success.
This is true.
Well, it's just a better matchup into Silas, because like if he steals your ult, I'm pretty sure he just gets like the one cast, one dash, and then that's it.
Yep, that's pretty
So
much.
like Silas will never steal your ult because it's
the
basically
point?
useless for him.
Oh yeah.
Why bother? So like
Well, he might
yeah,
steal it in like a duel, but he won't.
Mm-hmm.
for the one tiny little short range dash that costs a ton of mana, like it's really bad.
The first dash doesn't cost that much.
Yeah, but it doesn't do any damage either.
Yeah.
So like, great,
All
you stole a
right.
casted ult. Anyway, yeah, that's part of why it's good.
The next topic
Anyway.
I want to bring up here is more. I get to ask Connor this question all the time, but I get to now ask you this. What
Ooh.
is a solo queue streaming personality, a trend that you've seen recently? Because we're version 1 of World Patch, because 11.19 is going to be the actual World's Patch. What are some trends you saw that you think are interesting that you want to like note on?
Like in solo queue?
Yeah, in solo queue, in like streams, or anything that you may have noticed, like rumor milling around that you think are interesting.
I know that like there's been a couple people complaining about how there's tanky assassins. Apparently some people have been building, I think it's Talon at and like one other assassin, like
Zed?
if not full tank, like Bruiser, which is like disgusting, and then still face rolling with it. So as much as I don't like to play against assassins, I like watching pro assassins. So like if that somehow became a thing, that'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
No, you may have a good point there, because like we were discussing how they buffed Talon, Kiana, Rengar, and Evelynn a lot in the jungle. So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, it's like Talon jungle is playable now. basically. And we don't know if the pros are going to be like, yeah, this clear speed is actually good, or like these ganks are these kind of things, right? But like
Mhm.
they gave it a big buff, and we know that a lot of pro players, like when we saw Rengar at last Worlds, it was like that off tank Rengar build and stuff, right? It's like you don't necessarily want this full assassin who's just going to go in and die, and it's very
Mhm.
like feast or famine, like it either works or it doesn't. But if Bruiser Talon is actually decent, that might be something we see at Worlds, because it's like, okay, I'm not just so like I must kill you or else I lose kind of thing. It's like
Mhm.
there's a lot more of like counterplay. I can go in, I can like look for my opportunities, I can get out if I need to, I can whatever,
Mhm.
Gore Drink or Talon or something like
Yeah.
that might be good. That's really interesting.
I'd also like to put up, if I was anywhere near not as lazy at editing or anything, I'd be like support watch with like a little echo going off.
Hmm.
Enchanters versus engaged supports. Now,
Yes, you
all
talked about this in our Facebook group chat.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I want to get, because we're all three of us are, well, I don't really play, but uh, but the two of you are support players primarily, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your take currently in the status of enchanters versus engaged supports at this moment.
I personally will always be biased towards enchanter supports. I love playing Soraka. I know people hate Soraka, but I love Soraka Karma. Like those are two of my favorite supports, and they're also the two champs I got mastery 7 on first. Um so like those champs to me are great. I love when enchanters are good. Um the one thing though is that depending on what we're talking about in terms of engaged supports, I think that a lot of the times engaged supports have the upper hand. Like whenever I do play support and I'm an enchanter, I feel like I usually lose lane to engage supports because like it's really easy to catch out a silver or gold level ADC. So like no amount of karma shielding or Soraka healing is going to save you from a Pantheon with electrocute and ignite, right? Like empower W into electrocute ignite is like essentially like 4/5 of your health, and then they just need to auto you and you're dead. So like I think depending on what we're talking about in terms of like engage, like the more damage heavy engage supports, I think they win. But if we're talking things like Alistair and stuff like that, or Nautilus, that like they kind of just offer lots of CC, but like they don't really offer like damage. I think enchanters are fine.
Okay.
Well, I mean, my first comment on that is, what delightful agony we shall inflict. Sorry, as in Thresh is better than everything. But
Thresh also got
you know,
nerfed literally every patch coming up to Worlds.
it's weird. Every single time I'm like, Thresh is nerfed. It's going to be bad. I can't play Thresh anymore. And then I'm like, you know what? He's still just the best. He's still just better than everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm approaching like way too many games of Thresh. Just way too many. Because he's just better than everything else. What he does every single time, it's like, oh, I'm first pick. I don't know what's going to go on. Never can go wrong with Thresh. It's like, oh, my team needs a tank. Thresh is fine. We need magic damage. Thresh does that. I need to defend someone. Whatever. I need to engage. Got it. Like, does it all. No, but like if you're playing the enchanters properly, like the one enchanter I play a lot of is Janna. Like, 'cause that's my go-to. And like if you're worried about like a Pantheon, for example, or like the Alistar, the things you're worrying about, it's like they're never gonna kill my AD carry, like in the initial first engage kind of thing, because I have Q. When you dash in, I just interrupt your dash, right?
Okay.
Like, so it's just not used competitively as much because like it doesn't offer as much as the like teams need the engage, right? Like because we kind of discussed this, supports in professional play are the engage because it's not being brought to the table elsewhere
Hmm.
necessarily, right? So it's like, okay, we're gonna play the Rakan and the Rel and the Leona, these things, because we need these reliable engage options in order to make our control mages and our, more defensive AD carries and whatever else we're playing, in order to make our team comp work and all the things that are good in the meta, we need strong engage options.
Yep.
So we need the engage supports. So you can take away the engage supports. Sure, that's totally fine. You can play your Janna and Soraka. Cool. But then the question is, what is our engage options? What is our front line?
Engage then becomes probably Sejuani and like Maokai's and stuff like that.
Okay, but if I'm playing a Sejuani into a Lee Sin or a Xin Zhao who has better clear speed than me and can walk into my jungle and still fight me because he's, got his red smite and just a much better duelist, right?
Yeah.
A Divine Sunder, to burst through my tank stats and stuff. It's like, do I want to be a Sejuani into a Lee Sin?
Okay.
That's right. Like that's your question, right? So
yeah,
or like, okay, I
can
play Orange top lane
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then here's my thought, because I proposed this in one of the videos, and I'm going to do another prediction. I'm going to do another famed prediction that I've had a very solid track record of.
Do it, Sam. Do it. Predict it.
I'm expecting top and mid lane to be relegated to an enchanter in the solo lane, and having a jungler being an assassin, or one of the solo lanes being assassin with a standard bot lane with roaming.
Kha'Zix did just get buffed, I think. So
yeah. Many of the assassins got buffed to be junglers, and many of the jungler assassins got buffed.
Yep.
So
Yo,
like,
I'm not even joking. If we can get Soraka top, I'm gonna be happy. I love Soraka top. It's my favorite top laner to play when it's viable, which is technically all the time.
it's all the time, baby. I do think that's going to be the trend that's going to go, mostly because it was already leaning in that direction to begin with the current set of things that we had. There was a lot of solo lane Lulu every so often, and that always tends to come up. Karma's always been a good option, but I think that there's going to be a higher emphasis on solo lane enchanters, including, and unless they do something in 11.19, to nerf Soraka. But it looks like Soraka currently in the support role or in many other roles has been a little ridiculous recently. So like, it would not surprise me if we get another rise of the Soraka mid. But this is very dependent on what 11.19 does. Do I think it'll do... I don't think it'll do more than a couple of games, right? Because a part of it is it's supposed to be an answer to something that might be the expected trends. In the same way that people were not kind of expecting the Morgana Rumble jungles during MSI, right?
Okay. People
were like, Rumble jungle? What do you mean? And then it literally became the standard across the board. In a meta where like the expected was Udyr. So I think it would not surprise me if something like that gets off gets like a little wacky in that sense, and that becomes the standard. But I would also not be surprised if, based off of the next patch, that totally just doesn't happen, and enchanters get like quelled back a little bit.
Yeah, but it's like if you're playing an enchanter solo lane, it's like I can play stuff into you as long as I'm playing something where I don't need to heavily hard commit and I have options. Like I can play something with decent sustain, like I don't know, whatever. You're playing whatever. Like I'm playing Fiora into Lulu, right? It's like I can keep just getting at the Lulu and just keep trying at things. It's like I can keep getting in your face. I can just, okay, you have one ult, cool, but I can just, keep dashing at you constantly. Right? Like maybe you can win the game with lances, maybe, but it's like I really just don't see it happening. Like it's very easy to punish the solo enchanters. I go, okay, assassins are good. Well, Rengar got buffed. Let's play Rengar top. You're gonna play your Lulu or your Soraka. I'm gonna play Rengar and sit in the bushes and be like, come near this wave. Get 1 CS. I dare you. I'm just gonna permafreeze and be in this bush.
Just I can imagine the fan art of like the poor Lulu afraid to even go near a minion. um. Okay. On to the storylines.
It just worries me.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like I can very much we've seen it happen before in professional play where it's like we've seen some of the top laners pick up Lulu and it's like no,
Yeah.
no.
The only one being able to do anything was Nuggery.
Or like if I'm even like just picking a cannon into it. And it's like, cool, I can harass you better than you can harass me. I have amazing all-in potential. You're not going to push me out of lane or anything. You can't really stop me from doing what I want to do. And I'm still probably more useful in team fights than you. Maybe not defensively, but offensively for sure.
So, with
Anyway.
that, no, I get it. It makes sense. Moving on from this, I want to talk about storylines. Now, fun fact: did you know that Reaper has a positive win rate against T1?
That's insane.
Did you know Reaper has a positive win rate against Coma?
Let's go.
Did you know that my two favorite
Let's-
coaches are Coma and Reaper?
Ah!
This is if they both are pulled into the same groups. It's totally doable, 100% doable. If 100 Thieves gets pulled into a European or Chinese or the PCS first seed, they can have both 100 Thieves and T1 in the same group, and we're gonna have a done deal. Better yet, if they manage to get EDG also in there, can they? Yeah, if they get EDG, 100 Thieves, and T1, we get an MSI 2015 reunion.
Weren't the
That would
pools
be
already made?
No,
No.
the pools aren't made. The pools will be
20
made next week, where we can probably take a video about predictions of how the pools are gonna
No,
go.
no, there's already there's. Oh no, those are the.
The
Wait, no,
But it's
yeah.
Valorant
next week.
draws were done, not the LC, not the League of Legends draws. League of Legends draws
Why
are
am I
on the
seeing-
22nd.
Why am I seeing LCK? Why am I seeing Damwon, Edward Gaming, Mad Lions, and PSG in the same pool?
They're all seed 1 teams. They're all the first
Cool.
place teams.
Like the pools that they're going to be drawn from.
Yeah, those are all the first place teams. DK, EDG,
Oh.
Mad, and PSG are the first place teams of all of those regions.
I didn't know that, so
Yeah.
there you go. Also, I don't remember them ever. I remember them using like 1s and 2s, like numbers, for pre-draw, and then letters for each individual pool. That's why I was confused.
Yeah.
Because before they used to be like, okay, who's getting drafted into pool A? Who's getting drafted into pool B? So I'm seeing A, B, C, and I'm like, oh, the pool's already made, but they made it different this year. That's what my confusion was. Because before, I'm pretty sure they used to be pool 1, pool 2, pool 3, like seeds is how they used to name them. So that's why I'm confused this year.
The pool
like,
seeds. The pool seeds are pool 1. Pool 2 is anybody who's not a first seed from the top 4 regions, and then pool 3 is literally the winners of the play-ins. Yeah. So.
Look at Cloud9 next to Detonation Focus Me. Love
I
it.
know.
They're gonna lose. I hope that Detonation Focus Me almost beating Cloud9 that one year. Oh my god.
Do you know how high I have Detonation Focus Me ranked?
How high? Please tell me. It's like 3rd.
No, not that ridiculous. I've got
No,
them,
I meant like of the play-in teams. I meant out of the play-in team.
I've got them on 14th place overall.
Oh, didn't you put like TSM or T 100T at like 17?
I put C9
was
in
C9.
17th.
17 was C9. Okay.
I put
that's
Rogue at
nutty.
16th.
Oh my god.
And I put Beyond
right.
Gaming on 15th. So literally, the the last place teams going in from the PCS, LCS, and LEC, I put underneath the LJL reps. And I think it's going to be interesting because DFM can probably get their rematch against C9 for that 1 year. They almost kicked C9 out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of reunions happening this year that I think are really cool. Like people are talking about the Griffin reunions, where they got like Viper and Peanut and a whole bunch of other ones that are coming back that are part of like the defunct now Griffin team. Or like, I think this one's cool because we talked about assassins recently. Are you guys hyped for the 4 Demon Kings about to just school all of the mid laners from around the world?
See, that's like one of those things that like I don't recognize until it's pointed out to me, and now that it's been pointed out to me, I'm hyped. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think of this take? This is probably the strongest mid lane pool we've ever had at a world championship.
Probably.
Oh shit. Wait. Yeah, including No Man's, which is probably still fairly up there given like his historical record.
He's just a shooter with no respect. It
Yeah,
doesn't
of
mean that
course.
he's bad.
Yeah, but like we're also bringing in like
Doinby.
humanoid Larson.
Yeah. Doinby is
And, like-
included in there. You've got, oh my god. Yeah, we got a
We
stack.
got Abadage, we got Baker, we got Jensen, Perks. Those
Yeah,
are
like
just
we
the ones
still
I
got
know.
Parks covered. Like
Perks is still Perks.
Perks is still Perks. That is true. Yeah, including also the mid laners and the PCS are actually like fairly stacked also. Honestly, I think the only mid laners that are like are, and I wish I could remember their names. There's only 4 of them that I can be like, I could take them or leave them. From Red, Galatasaray, Infinity, and Peace, which are in order the LLA, the TCL, or sorry, not the LLA, the CBLOL, the TCL, the LLA, and the LCO reps,
Mm-hmm.
who have fairly solid dynamics. Like they're very coordinated amongst themselves as teams, but their mid laners are not what strike out to me as
Yeah.
like strong points of their teams.
it's true. I'd say the same about like names Icon and Cryon, that kind of thing too. Like
Yes.
okay. But they're not the weak points in their teams for sure.
Yeah, correct.
I think regardless, I think the fact that we have 4 Demon Kings in the mid lane like just brings the roof up. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like regardless of it, like if maybe like pound for pound, we don't have like the best mid laners ever. I think just the fact that we have 4 Demon Kings at Worlds at the same time will like just like raises it regardless. You know what I mean? Like they're picking them up, right?
Yeah, it's the first year this has happened. Because this is the first year that Korea has gotten 4 seeds for their region. And
True.
usually everybody's like, "Oh no, one of these mid laners
one
has
of-
to stay back and they won't get to
Wait,
play."
is it really the first time? That's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, except for 4 teams. But like I'm also of the opinion that like Scout might not necessarily be as good as those 4, but it might very well be his meta because
Oh.
sure he's not Faker or Chovy or anything, but he's probably the best like possibly like he's for sure like the best mid lane Lee Sin and that kind of thing, right? And it's like
Okay.
if it's an assassin meta, he is not the control mage player. Like he is not a good Oriana, which is not a thing you normally say about like a world quality mid laner. But if it's
That's
an
almost-
assassin meta,
Yeah.
it might be
Alternatively,
tournament.
Alternatively, do you think that because Doinby is usually a much more flexible player in that type of sense, do you think that this is maybe not his meta then?
Hmm.
No, because
Okay.
he's. If we saw the thing like I said about like North America earlier, it's like the roaming. It's like well, the usual roaming if you're doing like the 3-person roams, is like the mid jungle support, right? So if we're seeing a lot of the junglers and supports that can get around the map and that can do stuff more and that can affect other lanes, well, Doinby can do that too. So like if we are seeing let's say we're seeing an assassin jungler, right, on his team instead of like it being played in mid lane like other teams are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if he's playing his predator mid lane or something, and then can now roam in with his jungler to like enable his assassin jungler to get kills or something, great, right? Like if he's on predator Galio and then can just his assassin jumps in, he jumps on top of them, right? Like they might have a slightly different play style than the rest of the teams, but
Okay.
If one champ's really strong, they might just use it differently than other teams, right? Which I
You
think
want
it's
to
fine.
hear? You want to hear another fun fact for this year?
Okay.
Always
So,
down for facts.
all right. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 world championship teams, all of which could get either second, third, or fourth championships.
Gen.G, Damwon, T1, FunPlus.
Mm-hmm. And Fnatic.
Yeah, because season one.
Yeah, no.
It's-
I get.
No,
What
I know, I know. I'm not the type of person to be like, oh, it doesn't count. Like it was still an accomplishment, but it's a lesson.
They literally define the meta we still play to this day.
I know.
So like, I'm never gonna be like, oh yes, this world championship probably is not as hype as the other ones, but they also is the championship that defined how we play the game. Literally 11 years later.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like I get that it has its merits. It's just more like there are some things that kind of keep it from ever being able to be as hyped as that, in my opinion.
I get that. That being said, we also have we have like 1, 2, 3 MSI champions also in the lineup.
Yep.
We have a stacked championship lineup in the supposed top 8 teams. The only top 8 team that I have, at least as a top 8 team, that has no stacked championships behind them is Mad.
And they've recently been on a tear.
This is quite literally a year where somebody could get on the run to either tie T1 or be a new team to get 2 championships under their belt for their region too. This could be the year Europe actually gets it reasonably. Europe could get their second championship under their region without any asterisks.
How can Fnatic do it though? They don't have Reckless.
I'm
What
talking
will
about
they do?
the regional championships. Like, there's not many regions have championships to them, right? Like, I could talk about how the PCS could feasibly, with PSG talents, could feasibly make a finals run. Like, it is not an unlikely situation. I think this is the year where it is like, you could make your argument about who your top 8 are all day, and any one of those top 8 I could reasonably see making it, and I could see almost every top 2 seed making it to the finals. Almost.
And that's why this year is pretty hype.
Oh yeah. Like, last year was only kind of hype. This year is incredible.
I mean, I was hype with Suning, so like.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Suning was fun last year.
Suning was fun.
Too bad they flopped this year. Here's my question to the two of you. Do you think a minor region will make top 8 again, a la 2014 Worlds?
Who was the one that did it in 14? It wasn't Kaboom, right? It was,
no, Kaboom helped C9 qualify because they beat Alliance.
Yeah.
With the famous "Do it for Kaboom." No, it was a Russian team from the LCL.
Oh, Albus.
Albus yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they were great. I loved them. I think that they're.
I'm gonna go with no.
It's hard to tell because like I haven't watched. Like my watching in general of League has gone down, unfortunately, this year. So I don't know like the minor regions or however we want to describe them as well. So like I unfortunately I don't think I'm educated enough to answer. I'd love to see it though.
I have to go with no, just because usually we get like, 4 teams coming into the actual group stage or something, or maybe 3, depending on like the play-ins. But the way they had the play-ins this year, it's like, well, chances are, even if you're saying one of Rogue or Cloud9 drops in play-ins, chances are one of them gets through reasonably. It's a pretty fair assumption to say one of Rogue or Cloud9 will get through at least. And then you also have LNG going through play-ins, and is it HLE?
Yeah, Humble Life, yeah.
So it's like, who are
It has Chovy.
probably two wins to go through?
You
Yeah,
just have
like,
to
is
say
Chovy
Chovy.
going to go out and play it? No, he's not. So it's like, well, you're going to have, let's say it's maybe one team going through the group stage. It's like, normally you get like 3 or 4 chances. This year, you're not going to get 3 or 4 chances, because do you really expect, like, sure, DFM's maybe not that bad or something, but are they going to beat Chovy? No. Are they going to beat Perks?
That one's not as
Right, like-
strong, not as compelling. Like, Chovy has a record of being like absolutely dominating. So I guess I'll rephrase the question then, right? Because like it all hinges on our expectations of play-ins.
Like, we've never had Chinese and Korean teams going through play-ins before, right?
Untrue. We've had last year Chinese teams go to
we had one-
play-ins. We've had Korean
LGD?
teams also.
Was it LGD last year?
Yeah, LGD
Sorry.
last year.
Sorry.
We've also had a
We've
Korean
never had
team.
both.
But you're right.
Right? So they take up more spots to get to the actual tournament. That's more what I meant.
Okay.
So because we have both of them going through play-ins, we now have less spots, less chances for the actual emerging region teams to get to group stage.
Rogue, by the way, auto qualifies to group stage, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Because then the 4 teams that are expected to go through right now is
Okay,
Beyond Gaming, C9, LNG, and Hamon Life. Right? So you either have LNG Esports and Hamon Life are automatically slotted to go through. People automatically consider them. And so you're
And that's-
expecting Beyond Gaming.
They're all major regions.
Yes. But like, are you expecting both Beyond Gaming and C9 to keep up a level high enough to face off all of the emerging region teams?
And even if they don't, well, now you have one emerging region team. And the way the groups are set up, it's like, no matter how you look at your group is either going to be like, you're going to have, an LCK and a LPL team in it almost no matter what. So it's like, your group is EDG and T1. Are you getting through that? No. Your group is whatever, Mad Lions and Genji and FPX. Are you getting through that group? No. Like, no matter how you look at the groups, it's like,
there are not many group setups that work that will make it so that you go through. Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't think there's going to be a like, hey, this is the group of life this year. That's like, you're not going to look at the groups and be like, this is a group of life. This is a group where like people have a chance. It's going to be like every group is like, yeah, this group is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'll agree with you. I think that the media teams will immediately slot whichever region has PSG plus a North American team. They'll slot that as the group of life.
For life. Okay.
Even though I think that if you put PSG and Team Liquid or PSG and 100
PSG is
Thieves,
not guaranteed North American team though.
Yeah. So if I put PSG and 100 Thieves in the same group, and then you put any of the other 3 regions in that group, that's not a group of life. Not even close. 100 Thieves is incredibly versatile and adaptive. PSG has what I consider the best bot laner going to Worlds, bar none, if Unified can participate. I don't know if you I don't think you actually heard this take from me. PSG has the best ADC going to Worlds this year.
I think I heard you type that.
Yeah.
Or sorry, I saw you type that.
It's kind of nuts how good he is, and I think this is going to be his first year if he's able to, if he doesn't get sick or something else happens. This will be his first international tournament, and like, I'm going to overhype him, but also underhype him, like, and say like, this guy is crazy good. I'm just a little concerned that this will be still his first international tournament, and I think this is the least stacked ADC year.
Ooh,
yeah.
All right.
Right, as much as like mid lane, hype, bot lane, yeah.
Yeah,
not because of meta. I just think it's just not there.
For what it's worth, it's also possible that group is PSG, FPX T1 is entirely possible.
Hmm?
So,
That'll be a real test of metal.
and if that happens, one of those three is out.
All I'm
Yeah.
saying is that
Okay.
I can't wait to buy a T1
He cut out.
jersey
Oh.
when they win. That's
Oh,
oh no.
you're
I'm
back.
saying hello. You hear me now?
Yes,
I
you
was
want to
saying
buy a
I can't
T1
wait to
jersey
buy a
when they win?
T1 jersey when they win.
Okay. Do we want to do another one of these
Yes.
bets again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, here's a stipulation. I think it has to make top 4, right?
Mhm.
Which 4 teams do we want to see make top 4?
Oh, we're not just gonna do like anything outside of China, Korea?
No. Because believe it or not, I don't think that every LCK team is going to make top 8. I put them
Really?
all.
Oh, you think like they'll auto like
I don't think it'll be automatic.
like get themselves?
Yeah, I don't think so. There's like a very strong chance that happens. But I don't think it will. Mostly because like
I have LNG and Genji rated a little bit higher, but yeah, you're right. I do have some teams that is.
Right? So like, what team? Tell you what, there should be one that the 3 of us collectively agree on. That if it makes top 4, we'll get a jersey, and then one each.
Okay.
And, so, Connor, who do you?
Are we gonna do this plus LCS, assuming that LCS is unlikely?
I think all of LCS should just be there. I think it should be all of LCS.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement. Okay, so we'll put our 4th one as all of LCS.
Top 4. Especially if you're saying top 4, because like LCS top 4.
Yeah, all of LCS top 4. We'll put that as 1. So outside of that, each of us pick a team. I'll start with who's got one off the top of their head that they want to.
Fnatic.
All right. So Connor picks Fnatic. All right. So
I'll pick Mad.
You'll pick
because I like Mad. Their color scheme's cool.
Really? Okay.
I haven't historically been a big Fnatic fan, but people were talking about like the French league kind of thing. I watched a game or two. And I'm like, oh yeah, this Adam guy, he's really good. Then he got picked up by Fnatic, and like he's just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And like he's just kind of silly and gay. He's like, yeah, guys, you're good. Like.
All right. Let me just put.
I'm appreciating the current Fnatic.
Let me put in a note. So we got all of LCS, Fnatic.
Watch.
Mad.
The top 4 is 3 LCS teams in Korea.
Mine that I'd be willing to say is Fnatic PSG. Just because,
That's who I was gonna pick next. PSG. I'm so hyped for PSG. So if any LCS team, Fnatic, Mad, or PSG make top 4, we get a jersey of that team.
Yep.
Heck yeah. And these are teams that that might straight up not make it. I've slotted Mad as a top 4 team. But given how stacked this year is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just an all LCK LPL. Or some teams we just don't. This is gonna be a great year. I feel it in my bones. Draw, I think, is gonna garnish a lot of salt.
You think?
Yes, I do think draws is gonna cause a lot of salt. What is group matchup that you don't want to see? I'll end because I feel like we're gonna head off to the end of it after we've now chosen. Just as a lead off for our next episode next week, when the day after groups draws have been done. What is? I'll say in 2 parts. What is a matchup you don't want to see in play-ins and a matchup you don't want to see in groups?
This is more of a general thing for me. I don't want to see I don't want to see competing. How do I phrase this? I don't want to see Korea and China knock each other out. If that makes sense.
I mean, I feel like that's inevitable because they both have
In
4
groups though.
seeds.
So
In play-ins, or?
in groups. So what I mean by that is like if there's a group where the records are pretty like close and stuff like that, I don't want to see Korea and China like knock each other out and like that's like we get one Korean team or one Chinese team out of the group and that's it type thing. And I
Well,
I wouldn't want to see the deciding match be between the two of them.
that'll
That
almost guaranteedly happen in whatever Mad Lions group is,
probably.
because it'll be Mad Lions plus either it's Mad Lions plus either FPX or Gen G,
Okay.
and then either T1 or RNG. And
And then-
if they miss one of those teams somehow, then they're guaranteed to get the remaining team that makes it through play-ins, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's a little inevitable. Are there like specific teams you don't want to see matched up in groups, and you want to see if they face off in the brackets?
That's a better one.
Like you want to see them do best of fives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's just a general yes.
It's just previous answer,
Yeah.
but phrased that way.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, I want to see them knock each other out after like a best of 5 slog fest. Like that's what I want.
Okay. What about in play-ins? Are there teams that you don't want to see matched up in play-ins?
I would like to have Detonation Focus Me have the easiest group possible. So I don't want them to face a Chinese or Korean. I want them to face C9 and I want them to win. That's what I want.
C9 and Beyond Gaming is the group.
Yes.
Okay.
I would love that too so much.
Um,
Much.
I would enjoy Unicorns versus Cloud9 for the chaos.
Mm,
Just because we're gonna
Absolutely.
get a lot of good games this world. Just like that chaos, just so that it happens.
Mm. Oh yeah.
Would be funny. But yeah, I'm not crazy worried about play-in groups because like it's kind of hard to predict because they're all different regions and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Group stages you can kind of slot it a little bit more to see like, okay, what is likely.
mhm.
Who are 2 teams you don't want to see in groups then that are like slotted against each other in groups?
I don't want to see T1 versus PSG. I don't want to see that.
Okay.
Okay.
I want that to be a groups thing. Or sorry,
A
a
best of
bracket
5.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am kind of hoping Damwon and FPX are in the same group because A, you get that right off the bat, and then B, that means that Fnatic and 100 Thieves aren't in Damwon's group.
So you don't want Damwon to face either Fnatic or 100 Thieves. Okay.
No, 'cause I mean, because that makes groups where it's like it's a tiny bit more likely that those 2 teams have slightly better groups. Plus, you get the interesting like, yeah, we're gonna get Damwon versus FPX right away.
I
Which
get
means
that.
you're at least guaranteed to see it, right? So like you have at least that. It's like, yeah, this is going to be some super high quality right away.
For
Super
me,
high quality League of Legends.
super high quality right away.
In theory.
In play-ins, despite the fact that I would love to see DFM have C9 and BAYG in their play-ins group and just like have a field day, have Utapon literally absorb them in chaos. I personally do not want to see Hollow Life and LNG in the same group. I don't. I do want to see them in their own separate playing groups because I feel like it'll show an exact mark off point to where, like,
For all the emerging regions.
for all the emerging regions, because it'll literally be
Fair.
it will show exactly put up, like, show up or go home. Because I'm not disappointed by any of the teams except for UOL going into Worlds, right? But despite the fact that I think all of these teams have a strong chance of being competitive, asterisk, against any of the other teams, just not consistently. I want them to show that they are able to slowly learn to adapt. Like I do expect that with DFM. I expect it with Peace. I expect it with Red, and in as much Galatasaray. But I want them to both face off against one of the scary teams, right? Each. LNG, terrifying. Hollow Life, Chovy's literally going to eat everyone for snacks. Nom, 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 nom.
Can't forget Deft. But yes.
Yes.
For what it's worth.
for
Going into that.
Oh yeah.
That jet.
For groups,
Yeah.
I don't.
And LNG is Tarzan.
LNG is
so.
Oh my god, Tarzan is.
So it's going to be we would have Chovy styling on one group and Tarzan styling on the
other. For group stage, I don't want to see T1 and 100 Thieves facing off against each other. Or sorry, I don't want to see DK and 100 Thieves facing off against each other, because I want to see if 100 Thieves does make groups. I want to see a best of 5 with Rebird and Coma again, and see Rebird literally mind game the fuck out of this guy. Even if they lose, Rebird will have won the draft game 100%. I just kind of want to see that happen again. It was so satisfying in MSI when that happened. Never happened again because he decided to go to Worlds and be on C9 for 5 years. I think you muted yourself, Accent.
No.
Oh, okay, it just blocked out.
I'm just making mouth noises. I mean, you're not wrong. I get it.
With that, I think this is a good stopping off point for now. We got enough stuff that I think that, like, we're really hyped for this. There's a lot of cool narratives, and I think that a lot more of these narratives and a lot more of these predictions will come to, like, a more concrete idea when draws are done, where we can discuss that in our actual full-on, like, this is how we expect the whole tournament to play out type of such situations. And more announcements will come to see who can actually guarantee to go and who has to do substitutes and how that affects things, because I do think that there's going to be a lot more substitutes this year. I think, I might be wrong, we might only have the one substitute. That'd be amazing.
Actually, just for one last thing, we don't have the actual thing yet, but we have a preview of the actual Worlds patch. So, like, the unofficial preview. I know this is running long, but for what it's worth, just really quickly, Kennen nerf, Ryze nerf, Sona nerf, technically, Soraka nerf, Varus nerf. So, unlikely to see the Soraka and Sona come in at the very least.
Oh,
damn!
Great.
But buffs are Aatrox, Kali has more hit points. Cho'Gath Q is 6 seconds instead of 7. Gragas AP ratio is buffed. Gwen gets more base hit points. Mordekaiser's cooldown are down. Poppy cooldown reduced. Kiana does even more damage to monsters. Sejuani has lower cooldown on her passive, that kind of thing. Seraphine's alt cooldown is down. Ha! Sorry. Sion's shield is bigger, and Silas's mana is up slightly.
Okay.
Nice.
He's very good. Seraphine alt from 180 to 120 to 160 to 100. The way I play Seraphine is I go 150 ability haste. It is possible. It requires stupid amounts of nonsense of customizing every single thing in the game that's possible to get you ability haste. I think it's 148 is the highest possible number. But when they reduce her base cooldown, I've had it where once I had 4 Cloud Dragon Souls, it had 30-second Seraphine ult.
Connor.
Under 30-second, I think it was. So if they reduced it, it'll mean that my 22-second Seraphine ult will be possible.
Great.
It'll be a Lux missile. I mean, a Lux laser at that point.
Oh my god. My god.
Stupid.
Well,
I mean, that requires getting Cosmic Drive and stuff on Seraphine.
Cosmic Drive's all right.
yeah.
Oh no, but it means mid lane Seraphine, where you can actually afford that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
is entirely reset. Enchanters are half decent,
Oh yeah.
and if
that's right.
if they're actually taking a full 20 seconds off her ult cooldown.
Oh no. I sometimes regret the words I say out loud because sometimes I forget about the other scenarios that I imply with my words. And Seraphine Mead, I was not a big fan of. So you're telling me more. Okay, great. Anywho,
It's my melody. Gonna be quoting Seraphine all day.
No, but in profile you tend to group up kind of things. And if if assassins are good, then Seraphine, where I can just press W on 5 people, is really good into assassins.
Oh
True.
shit. Yeah, that makes it so that there are way more dynamic team fights at that point, or dynamic engages. Huh.
I'm expecting if that's true,
If it's
or
true.
even if it's 15 seconds or kind of thing, I'm expecting Seraphine.
Next week when draws happen, we'll have the actual patch also by that point. Because patches are released on Tuesdays, draw will happen on Wednesday.
Nice.
Yeah. With that,
So I will talk about the patch notes, and you guys.
when we get to that point next week, yeah. With that, thank you all for those who have watched all this way. Really appreciate it. And you let us know what you think. What are some hype timelines that you're really into? What do you think about the political dynamics between the legacy regions versus emerging regions and how that views the way that we watch the games? Are there any things about the meta that you think are going to happen? Predict it down below. Are there teams that you want to see in the top 4? Who do you think is going to win the whole thing? If you haven't put in your prediction for which 2 regions you think are going to go to the finals or which one region is going to be in the finals, you put that down below. Which most people will think it's either Korea or China or Europe. It's a combination of those 3. Yeah, you let us know what you think down below about your trends that you're seeing. Thank you all for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you also enjoyed this video. And with that, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.